Guiding me home tonight down the long road of old cobblestone, down the road that leads back to the tumble-down shack, to the tumble-down shack in
In traveling the road that leads back to that tumble-down shack in Athlone, we soon discover that the real charm of Old Erin is in her picturesque and peaceful countryside, where a vast majority of her people engage in agricultural pursuits and live in humble but happy circumstances. In our world travels, we observe that the purely agricultural countries seem to have a natural advantage that industrial depression cannot completely overrule. And as a result of this, there appears to be a certain independence and pride manifested among the poorer classes that one seldom finds in the highly industrialized countries. This is indeed easy to understand, as the soil is the first and most natural source of livelihood, and it is not unlikely that the chief solution to many of man's problems in the machine-ridden countries will be found in a more universal cultivation of the land. Almost 3/4 of the real wealth produced in Ireland is derived from farm products, and no matter how poor a family may be in the Emerald Isle today, there is no excuse for them being hungry, for as long as the soil produces, thanks to the proverbial generosity of Irish farmers, there is enough for all. And here is Dick Harrow, who says he's the fattest man that ever set foot on the Emerald Isle. Even the donkeys can't believe their eyes or their ears when they see him. Dick says he weighs 560 pounds, is 5 feet 11 inches tall, 35 years of age, married, and has a perfectly normal son. He claims his health is fine, but after dragging a donkey around all day, he becomes a bit fatigued. On the road to Connemara in the western part of Ireland, we are fascinated by a countryside that is literally honeycombed with stone walls. This seems an act of providence, for Ireland has little or no timberland and must depend largely upon stone for most of its rural construction. The superabundance of rocks, therefore, accounts for the unique little stone houses which are characteristic throughout this part of Ireland. But in the country south of Dublin, we find the picturesque thatch-roofed cottages for which southern Ireland is noted. This setting is humble, to be sure, but to sit in an old kitchen beneath the low rafters of a thatch-roofed cottage, sipping a good cup of tea and listening to the tales that Irish peasants tell so well, is to know Ireland as it can never be known otherwise. Here a stranger needs no introduction, for he is always a welcome guest. Rural life is made doubly picturesque by the little donkey carts that are ever present along the country roads. No small amount of this slow and peaceful traffic is directed to the various municipal dairies that have recently been organized throughout Ireland. Here the farmers, rich and poor alike, come each day with their respective contribution of fresh milk, which is scientifically transferred into cream, butter, and cheese, important commodities of the Emerald Isle. Country fairs in Ireland are always picturesque and interesting. They afford a source of diversion for the people and also provide an opportunity for the Irish farmer to compete with his fellow farmers in the display of prize-winning livestock. In this case, it's "Ba, ba, white sheep, have you any wool? Yes, sir, 3 bags full." And while we're on the subject of nursery rhymes, a certain Irishman told us that this bull was the father of the cow that jumped over the moon. But maybe that's just blarney and typical of the fantastic tales that one is apt to hear in the good old Emerald Isle. Perhaps the most unusual livestock market in the world is to be seen at Galway, a thriving little town in the south of Ireland, which graciously surrenders its main street about once a month to the farmers and their cattle. It is a great day for the Galway storekeepers, even though occasionally the cows insist upon pushing their way into the stores. Evidently, it's a dull market. The types of people that usually assemble here are representative of agricultural life in Ireland. And although they be plain in manner, they represent the backbone of a country that could not exist without their cooperation. The native mothers of any country always inspire a certain sentiment, but the older Irish mothers, as we see them in the little towns of Ireland today, appeal most to our emotions, for we know there is hardly one among them who has not a son who left her to seek his fortune in some faraway country. Even as late as 1926, 30,000 emigrants left Ireland, and 26,000 of that number were bound for the United States. In interesting contrast to the little town of Galway is Dublin, capital and chief city of the Irish Free State, and the pivotal center around which Irish life has evolved for the past 1,000 years. Perhaps the most historic of Dublin's old landmarks is Trinity College, founded in 1591 by Queen Elizabeth, and rated today as one of the world's outstanding educational institutions. This old college has faced the tide of Dublin traffic for centuries and has been a silent observer of all the changing aspects of a cosmopolitan city. But just inside its gates, we are suddenly transported back into the 17th century. Among the many renowned scholars who attended this college were Oliver Goldsmith, Edmund Burke, and Thomas More, three of Ireland's most illustrious sons. O'Connell Street, one of the principal thoroughfares of Dublin, is named after Daniel O'Connell, the great Irish statesman known as the Liberator, who devoted his life to the cause of Irish freedom. Although excessive emigration has been a great drawback in the development of Ireland as a nation, since the inception of the Irish Free State, the tide of migration seems to have been curtailed, and this may be an indication that a certain pride in home government is arousing the interest of the young Irishman and prompting him to remain in his own country. And well he might, for Ireland is one of the most interesting, healthful, and picturesque countries in the world. And it is with this thought that we bring our Glimpses of Erin to a conclusion.
Will